Now the question that I want to ask you about is, why do you suppose it is that the women of this century are running out of progesterone when they're 35 years old? We didn't have a good answer for that 12, 15 years ago. We thought maybe it was stress, bad diet, poor nutrition, but nobody had ever showed the exact steps of how that comes about. And then we had the evidence from the die-off of different wildlife populations. The alligators in Lake Apopka, Florida, the Florida cougar, the turtles, the frogs, the peregrine falcon, the whales in the St. Lawrence, beluga whales in the St. Lawrence River, the fish in the Great Lakes, the salmon in Scotland, and the undescended testes and the damage, obvious damage to little boys being born in Denmark. And it was all over the industrialized world that animals were having trouble repopulating. And the scientists that were called in to study these animals all found the same thing. The ovaries of these animals, whether it's birds or reptiles or fish or the alligators or the deer or the cougar, the ovaries are large, but the follicles where the eggs come from were damaged. They had dysfunctional follicles. And in the males, the testes were reduced in size, atrophied, and the Sertoli cells that make the testosterone were damaged. Now, when are these structures made? They are made in day 14 to 17 of your embryo life. Something is getting into your mom when she's pregnant with you. And the ovaries are being put together during those days, and the testicles in the males. And they're being put together wrong. And in all of these animal populations, the thing that caused it was pollution, environmental pollution by petrochemical substances, mostly insecticides and pesticides, but any petrochemical substance, or many of them, thousands we now know, that have a very, very potent effect on the development of those tissues during embryo life. You can give DDT to the grown-ups, and the grown-ups do not die from that. They don't even appear to get sick from it. But if they were pregnant at the time, the baby will be affected, but it won't be observable at the time of birth. The baby will look fine. But when the baby grows up to be 32 years old, she will run out of follicles. She still makes estrogen, but she's run out of follicles and she can't make it. She's chugging along on all this estrogen. She has unopposed estrogen until for the next 12, 15 years until she goes through menopause. And even then she has unopposed estrogen, because estrogen doesn't fall to zero. But the progesterone has fallen to zero. You see what's happened? The doctors who found all this were brought together by Dr. Theo Coburn, a PhD, who works for Wildlife Center in East Coast. And they have written a book called Our Stolen Future. It gives you all the evidence of this ongoing poisoning of our environment by petrochemical products that is now showing up in women as progesterone deficiency. But you see, it's always one generation ahead. The poisoning that's going on now will not be observable till 35 years from now. If you take the fall in testosterone and sperm in men, older men, like 40, 45, 50, some people think it's older. It's younger for me. But if you take the sperm count in these older people who've lived in these areas, and their moms were living there when they were in the womb, their sperm count is falling. And if you graph that out, the falling sperm count will hit zero 2 generations from now. It may be that the last male child to father a baby in the United States, the last male to father a baby in the United States may already have been born. Think about it. And the women are the ones that are showing the effect of this because they need the progesterone. Now, let me tell you what happened in the last... Anyway, in my practice, I learned that the fibrocystic breast turned back to normal, losing scalp hair turned back to normal, thyroid problems turned back to normal, weight loss problems turned back to normal. I could help people get pregnant because when they ovulate, I could give them progesterone, and then that would make the fertilized egg survive. They could stay on it right through period. Edema problems went away, allergies went away. I have ladies that call me from the Safeway store, and they realized, they walked through the counter where the Sinotabs and the decongestants are, and they realized that now, since they've been on progesterone, they don't have to buy those anymore. It's amazing, all this. None of it is in the books. So I wrote about it. So I try to tell people about it.